prior to meeting Luang Pu Dun. While practicing sitting samadhi, I would inhale and chant Bud, exhale and chant Do. I continuously stayed with observing the breath. All that I got from this was calmness. I didn't know how to further my practice. I ordained and was staying with Luang Por Panya. When I first came across the term dependent origination, I inquired about it with many people, but no one helped explain. I wanted to ask Luang Por Panya, but he received numerous invitations from the laity and travelled daily. I set the intention to learn more about dependent origination. After disrobing from monkhood, I studied the texts on dependent origination and came across the explanation of ignorance, namely, ignorance refers to the lack of understanding of the noble truths, further detailed as the lack of understanding of 8 topics: suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, the path to cessation of suffering, causes, effects, the relationship between causes and their effects, and dependent origination. Ignorance conditions formations. Formations comprise of meritorious formations, demeritorious formations, and formations of the imperturbable. Formation conditions consciousness. That is the consciousness that leads to rebirth. Consciousness conditions mind and matter, consisting of form, feeling, perception, formations, and consciousness. Mind and matter condition the sense bases: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Sense bases condition contact, sense impression. There are 6 kinds of contact. Contact at the eyes, the ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, which give rise to feelings. The 3 kinds of feelings are pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Feeling conditions craving. The 3 kinds of cravings are craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, and craving for non-existence. I continued reading and it went on about clinging, becoming, birth, and suffering, with each classified into their subtypes. Clinging has 4 subtypes. I read till the end, many times over. Yet I couldn't see the relationship between each of the Dharma factors. I thought, how am I to practice? No matter how much I read, I could not figure out how to practice. I only knew as per the text that one particular factor conditions some other factor, along with the description of each of the factors and the number of their subtypes. But I couldn't connect this teaching with the practice. Many years passed before I met Luang Pu Dun. I went to see him, but I didn't mention that I wanted to study, to understand the noble truth and dependent origination. I wasn't thinking about this at all when I only mentioned I'd like to meditate. He reflected and then taught me to see the mind. To see the mind, this was like being given the key to meditation. Although I had read the scriptures and texts extensively, I didn't know how to begin meditation. I did not know where to start. When I clued in on the word mind per Luang Pu Dun, I reflected, oh, so it begins at the mind. It begins with the mind, so be aware of the mind. Understand the truth. And then abandonment would occur in the mind. Continuing to be aware of the mind will lead to understanding the noble truth. I thought of his teaching. The mind going out is the cause of suffering. The result of the mind going out is suffering. The mind seeing the mind clearly is the path to cessation. The result of the mind seeing the mind clearly is the cessation. What is the mind going out? As we keep practicing, we will see it on our own. We will see that the mind quickly makes contact with objects at the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and the mind. When the mind makes contact with sense objects, if mindfulness, samadhi, and wisdom don't arise promptly, craving will arise, clinging will arise, fabrication will arise. Then the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind will be clasped for use. Then the self will arise, and suffering will arise. Observe carefully, study slowly, and understand gradually, step by step. Keep watching and we will see that the mind proceeds to make contact with objects all day. At this moment, it sees a form. Soon after, it hears a sound. Then, it smells an odor. After that, it detects a taste. Then, it senses via touch. Next, the mind thinks. After that, the mind meditates and focuses. The mind goes on making contact with objects all day. Can we prohibit it from making contact with objects? No, it cannot. Luang Pu Dun said, the mind, by nature, must go out. That is, it must go out to make contact with objects. When the mind goes out, if we don't have mindfulness, then the mind will concoct based on our latent tendencies. And then it fabricates becoming, birth and suffering. In the beginning, I felt and also thought that the mind wanders out. My view was that there was a singular mind, located at the center, and quickly it would wander out to the eyes, and soon after that, to the ears. The mind runs back and forth, over and over. Early on, this is what I perceived it to be like. As I kept observing, this wasn't the case. The mind did not run back and forth. I wondered, where should I situate the mind? I went to ask Luang Pu. Luang Pu, where is the mind located? At that time, I thought that the mind was located in the middle of the chest. I saw the mind start to operate from within the middle of the chest, spiraling upwards. Wholesome and unwholesome states arose in the middle of the chest. So, I thought that the mind was located in the middle of the chest. I saw the cycle of rebirth spinning around right there. Luang Pu Dun answered, the mind doesn't have a set location. That answer sounded even more confusing. The mind didn't have a set location. Then, where was I going to place the mind? Luang Pu said, the mind doesn't have a location. So, I kept investigating. Later on, I saw that actually no matter where the mind arises, that's where it ceases. The mind that arises at the eyes, ceases at the eyes. The mind that arises at the ears, ceases at the ears. The mind that arises at the nose, tongue, body, ceases wherever it arises. The mind that arises at the mind, ceases at the mind. Therefore, the mind is arising and ceasing all the time. The mind arises and ceases, a mind at a time, successively, all day and night. There is a tiny interval between each mind, which allows us to see that there isn't just one mind. Actually, the mind rises and ceases quickly. Seeing the gap between the minds allows us to see that the just prior mind and the ensuing mind are not one and the same, because there is an interval between them. By continuing to observe the mind, we will understand it even more. We will see that the mind arises at the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and the mind. Wherever it arises, there it ceases. When the mind rises, sometimes mindfulness doesn't arise. When mindfulness does not arise, the mind will be lost. Upon seeing a form, the mind gets lost in seeing that form, and then the mind gets lost in thinking about that form. When the mind arises at the ears to hear a sound, it will be lost in the sound, and then lost in thought about that sound. Lost states occur one after another, many times over. As we observe over an extended period of time, we will gain understanding. The mind wandering out to make contact with objects at the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and the mind is fine. It is the nature of the mind to do so. What's important is to have mindfulness. Without mindfulness, if the mind wanders out, the mind will fabricate wants and start clinging to objects. But when the mind wanders out and makes contact with an object, if we have the mindfulness to cognize it, if we have samadhi, that is, have awareness of our body and mind, the mind will not be lost in fabrication. Seeing fabrication or thoughts, the mind will not get lost in the world of fabrication. The mind will retreat from the world of fabrication and become the awakened, joyful knower mind. As the knower, the mind sees the arising and ceasing of form. And it also sees the mind, which is aware of form arising and ceasing. When there is contact at the ears, the sound is heard. The arising and ceasing of the sound is observed, and the mind, which is aware of the sound arising and ceasing, is also observed. Each and every one of the internal sense bases, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body or mind, or the external sense bases, form, sound, odor, flavor, touch, mental objects, all the minds that arise at the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body or at the mind itself, or the six consciousnesses at the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body or mind. Each and every one of these arises and ceases. As we continue to practice, we will see that forms, sounds, odors, flavors, tactile sensations and mental objects all arise and cease. The eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body and the mind arise and cease. Consciousness, the mind that arises at the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind, arises and ceases. Contact at the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind, arises and ceases. Feelings resulting from contact at the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind, arises and ceases. With observation, all of the various types of Dharma elements will become clearer, step by step. In the beginning, we cannot see them in detail in the manner that I have mentioned. We can only see that sometimes the mind knows and soon after it is lost. Sometimes it is angry and soon after it isn't. Keep observing easily in this way. The correct understanding will be gained. Contact arises and ceases at the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind. How does it arise and cease? Having eyes from birth to death, we've never once seen them cease. Actually, the eyes are not working all the time. The eyes see visible form for only a moment, and then they cease. Meaning, the optic nerve ceases, it stops working. The auditory nerve makes contact with sounds briefly and ceases. It stops working. The mind grasps it. The eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body or mind for just a brief moment. The moment when the mind grasps the eyes is termed birth. Grasping at the ears is birth. The mind grasping at the sense bases is birth. This is the meaning of birth. Before birth, becoming has arisen as mental fabrication. Before becoming, clinging has arisen. Before clinging, craving has arisen. Before craving, pleasant or unpleasant feeling has arisen. Before pleasant or unpleasant feeling, contact at eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body or mind has occurred. Just keep watching in an easygoing manner. In the beginning, we will see that sometimes the mind knows, soon after it gets lost, then it knows, and then gets lost. Sometimes it is angry, and then it isn't angry. It gets greedy, then it isn't greedy. Shortly after that it is lost, and then not. That's it to begin practicing. Gradually understanding will become clearer and clearer. At one point, it will be seen that all that arises ceases. eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, they all arise and cease. Whenever they cease, this indicates that they have stopped working, not being used. For example, even when the eyes are open, no visual consciousness arises at the eyes. So, the eyes do not see form because there is no contact. Contact is when the eyes form. Eye consciousness and attention are present, resulting in the seeing of form. Keep observing, and we will see this. Eventually, the mind will be able to conclude whatever has the nature of arising has the nature of ceasing. Forms, sounds, odors, flavors, tactile sense impressions, and mental objects arise and cease. The eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind arise and cease. Consciousness at the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind arises and ceases. Whatever arises, ceases. Keep observing. The eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind, forms, sounds, odors, flavors, tactile sense impressions, mental objects, consciousnesses of the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. Each of these contact categories has 6 elements. The triad and their 6 elements summed up are referred to as the 18 elements. As we keep practicing, we will observe them. If we cannot observe these subtle elements, we can observe the 6 sense bases or the 5 aggregates. As our observation becomes more refined, we will be able to see the 18 elements. And with continued observation, eventually we will be able to see dependent origination. The process that determines how things work is called dependent origination. If this exists, that exists. If this ceases to exist, that also ceases to exist. The elements arise and cease successively and repeatedly. Keep observing. To observe the mind, we cannot watch it directly. The mind takes no form, has no form, is formless. To be able to see the mind arise and cease, we cannot see it directly, because it has no form and takes no form. The mind is just a consciousness that senses objects. In order to see that 2 minds are not the same, we need to rely on mind concomitants. For example, a happy mind. The happy mind's behavior differs from a suffering mind's. A happy mind and a suffering mind each differs from a neutral mind. Gradually observe, and we will see that each mind arises and ceases. A happy mind arises and ceases. The suffering mind arises and ceases. Good minds and evil minds do the same. Wholesome minds arise and cease. Greedy minds, angry minds, deluded minds. Angry minds arise and cease. Greedy minds arise and cease. Deluded minds arise and cease. They all rely on mind concomitants, which constantly change. For instance, happiness arises and then changes. It turns into neutrality or suffering. This allows us to see that the mind co-arises with a mind concomitant, which is called jed to seek, and they mind and the mind concomitant arise and cease together. Thus, our observations of, the mind arises and ceases, is aided by mind concomitants. Why does the happy mind rise and fall? Since happiness itself arises and ceases. Therefore the mind with happiness concurrently arises and ceases. The suffering mind arises and ceases, because suffering itself arises and ceases. They arise together and cease together. As we keep observing, we will eventually see that all kinds of mind arise and cease. When we see that all kinds of mind arise and cease, that happy mind, suffering mind, neutral mind also arise and cease, that all kinds of wholesome and unwholesome minds also arise and cease, that the mind that sees form, the mind that hears sound, smells odor, tastes flavor, feels tactile sensations, knows mental object arise and cease. Eventually, we will see that all kinds of mind arise and cease. This means we already see impermanence, seeing them arise and cease repeatedly. At one point the mind will gain understanding. It attains the understanding that the mind is not us, that there is no us, but rather, that which arises, ceases. Whatever we thought of as definitely being us or permanently us, It actually does not exist. Instead, they are all just phenomena that arise and cease. This is what will be known. No matter how much we read the scriptures and texts, we won't be able to fathom the teachings. We must practice earnestly. We must observe repeatedly daily in order to understand. Because Dharma can't be understood merely by reciting, reading or listening. As in the case of the Four Noble Truths, when I was a child, there was a school subject on moral education. Now I hear they don't teach it anymore, do they? I don't know. I don't know what children study in school these days. When I was a child, there was a moral education subject, which taught us about the Four Noble Truths. What is suffering? Suffering is birth, aging, illness and death. This is suffering. Origin is desire, which is craving. Children learned this. Nirodha means death. I really would like to give this textbook author a knock on the head. Nirodha means death. Nibbana means death. The Eightfold Path consists of 8 practices. After reading this, I didn't actually understand it at all, but I thought I understood because I memorized it, took and passed the exam, and even got a good score. I thought suffering meant birth, old age, sickness and death. When I grew up, I was ordained at Chun Proton Temple and learned about this in more detail. Suffering is the 5 aggregates of clinging. The 5 clinging, grasping aggregates are suffering. So, I learned this in greater detail and thought once again that I understood the Noble Truths. The aggregates that we grasp are suffering. Therefore, the aggregates that we do not grasp are not suffering. That was what I thought. After a lengthy period of practice, my understanding changed too. The aggregates in and of themselves are suffering, with or without grasping. The aggregates suffer all by themselves. If we think there are non-suffering aggregates, we will still grasp and cling to the non-suffering aggregates. So, if we have learned or spout the theory, when our practice progresses, we will realize that what we thought we understood was not the reality. For example, when we learn about the mind, we see that when the mind is without mindfulness, it will grasp objects and thus will suffer. If the mind is not lost, but is with mindfulness, rooted in awareness, and is the joyful, awakened knower mind, this mind does not suffer. Therefore, there are 2 kinds of minds. The suffering mind is the mind that grasps at objects. The non-suffering mind is the mind that cognizes an object but does not grasp at the object. We will see it like this. However, as we keep practicing, one day we will find out that it isn't so. The knower mind also suffers. Its suffering is far greater than all the other types of suffering. Practice gradually more and observe nonchalantly. Eventually, we will know that even the most sublime kind of mind, the joyful, awakened knower mind, despite being accompanied with mindfulness, samadhi and wisdom, is still unreliable. We have no refuge at all. Amongst these 5 aggregates, we cannot rely on any one of them. None. Keep practicing gradually. One day we will understand. I am mapping it out for you, and all that you have to do is follow the path. If we practice and can observe the mind, progress will be fast. However, not everyone can observe the mind directly. A number of people will have to practice with more obvious things first. The mind is too subtle for them. If you cannot observe the mind, observe the body first. In this temple, many monks practice observing the body, not the mind. I even ask some monks not to observe the mind, because if done without sufficient mental power, their mindfulness and samadhi will be oft not rooted in awareness. The knower mind will cease, and will become the lost mind, either dwelling in emptiness, or with the light outside, or being drowsy, neither of which is useful. Thus, if we cannot see the mind, observe the body. There is nothing wrong with that. Keep observing the body. Observing the body will help us attain samadhi. We can also cultivate wisdom by observing the body. For instance, observe that the body is just a mass of elements. Observe that the body is made up of elements. This is wisdom cultivation. But if we merely focus on the matter body in a still state, this is calmness meditation. As mentioned before, I had visited Salawan Forest Temple to pay my respects to Luang Por Phut. I entered the rear gate and saw lots of dogs' feces all over the road, everywhere. The mind felt disgusted. The mind loathed it. And then, promptly, mindfulness and samadhi harmonized, and at the sight of the wet feces, the mind observed that the color was one part, the odor was another part, earth element was yet another part, water element was another part, and the fire and wind elements were two separate parts. The mind separated the feces into its elements, and then there was no feces, no cleanliness, nor dirtiness. Therefore, loathsomeness and foulness are not real. They are without essence, just concepts and notions. The true essence is the elements. Is the earth element dirty? Is the water element dirty? No. True elements are pure basic elements. Keep observing and separate things out. Therefore, in order to observe the body, observe that the body is just a mass of elements. Observe coarsely to see that the whole body is like a robot. It isn't us nor is it ours. This robot is sitting, standing, walking, or lying down. This robot is exhaling and inhaling. This robot is moving or being still. In the beginning, we can observe the body in this way. If we observe in this way, we will see that the body is simply matter. If we see the body as matter, this is calmness meditation. As we keep observing in this way, our mind will get calmer. But if we can see through it, we will see that in reality the body is just elements. That is earth, water, fire and wind elements combined together temporarily by the force of karmic effect, reproductive karma, which makes the elements combine in this manner, resulting in this bodily form. When the mind comprehends this truth, the mind can let go, step by step. Some people practice observing the body. When they see the loathsomeness and foulness of the body, they say that they no longer cling to the body. What about bodies that are not loathsome or foul? What will they do then? There are bodies that are not loathsome or foul, such as the bodies of deities or sublime beings, whose bodies neither decay nor stink, unlike that of humans, animals, hungry ghosts or hell beings, which are stinky and dirty. Sometimes contemplating the body's loathsomeness or foulness can result in temporary suppression of lust. If we practice and become adept at contemplating the body's loathsomeness and foulness, and if the mind firmly believes that the body is truly loathsome and foul, then lust will not arise. At this stage, one might think that one has attained the non-return state as a result of their contemplating bodily loathsomeness and foulness. In fact, this isn't so. Close examination reveals that noble attainment is the result of seeing the three characteristics of the elements or aggregates, and not the result of seeing the body's loathsomeness or foulness. This is because some forms are not loathsome or foul. Deities are always beautiful, never ugly. The human form is ugly, dirty, stinky, very stinky. When we have good samadhi as people walk past us, we feel they are stinky. Deities once told the Buddha that odor of human bodies stink as far as 900 miles. So, if the deities can see the human body's loathsomeness or foulness, then why don't they attain the noble non-returner state? Because they observe the bodies of others, not their own bodies, which do not have loathsomeness or foulness. For those practicing contemplation on the loathsome or the foul, it would seem as though one has attained the non-returner level, since craving for sensual objects supposedly disappears. But this is only a semblance. To be able to let go of defilements, one needs to see the three characteristics of existence, and by seeing the three characteristics of existence, one will gradually be able to let go. The mind lets go of the mind and grasp at the mind again, and let go and grasp repeatedly, over and over during the final stages. When one sees the three characteristics of the mind, one can then let go of the mind, but soon one will grasp at the mind again. To be able to let go permanently, one needs to see the noble truth. There are many levels of truth. When we practice insight, do we see the three characteristics of existence? We see the mind arise and cease. We see form arise and cease. We see that the mind is not us, and that form is not us. Seeing everything as existing under stress to disintegrate and disappear is called seeing state of suffering or being oppressed. Seeing suffering means everything is under oppression to disintegrate and disappear. Upon seeing this, the mind will gradually let go. However, the mind will let go and grasp back at it repeatedly. When one can permanently let go, one sees the noble truth and comprehends that the five aggregates are nothing but suffering. At the beginning of the practice, we feel that the knower mind is the happy mind. The lost mind is the suffering mind. We still see two kinds of mind, happy mind and suffering mind. As we keep practicing, there comes a point when one comprehends that the mind in and of itself is what more or less suffers. The body is more or less the suffering thing. There is no happy thing. Seeing so, we truly comprehend suffering. Once we comprehend suffering, the mind will let go. It will truly let go of the cycle of rebirth. The cycle of rebirth will collapse right then and there when we realize the suffering of the five aggregates, or the 6 sense bases, or the 18 elements, or the 22 faculties. We will comprehend dependent origination. That is, what we think exists is only as an assembly of numerous Dharma elements that have come together temporarily. They will disintegrate and fall away, and thus everything will be seen as being impermanent. Study gradually. One day we will see what I have just taught. For today, simply observing that sometimes the mind knows and then it is lost is good enough, or noticing that sometimes the mind is happy and then it suffers, and soon after it is neutral, this is also okay, or seeing that sometimes the mind is angry, soon it isn't, this is also alright. Seeing that sometimes the mind is greedy and then it isn't, is fine too. Our learning happens in tiny increments. But in due course, we will understand the entirety of dependent origination and the Four Noble Truths. Luang Pu Dun summed up his learnings as the noble truth of the mind. Luang Pu Mun taught him to observe the mind, and Luang Pu Dun practiced accordingly. Luang Pu Mun taught him, all formations and perceptions are impermanent. All formations and perceptions are non-self. Notice there is no mention of suffering, only of impermanence and non-self. This is because for non-form Dharma, impermanence and non-self are conspicuous. That is what Luang Pu Mun taught Luang Pu Dun. Luang Pu Dun then put it into practice. All formations and perceptions are impermanent. Formations and perceptions work hand in hand. If perception interprets incorrectly, formation will fabricate up the self. However, no matter how good the perceptions or the formations may be, they are impermanent. Even wondrous formation is impermanent. No matter how wonderful the formation may be, it isn't us, but only a state that arises due to the convergence of many Dharma elements. Soon after, it will disintegrate. There is only the rising and the ceasing. In this manner Luang Pu Dun understood the mind, and so his teachings were on the noble truth of the mind. Let's observe our own mind. Every day, practice attentively. We need to maintain the 5 precepts. Without the 5 precepts, one will surely fail. These days, there is a lot of news about monks with blameworthy moral behavior because they forget to keep the 5 precepts. They ordain as monks for their livelihood, similar to a layperson's career. But they don't bother with maintaining the precepts, practicing samadhi, or developing wisdom. They are literally ordinary people, but in saffron robes. Ordinary people can engage in immoral conduct. These monks also engage in immoral conduct, just like ordinary people, because they are actually just ordinary people who have donned saffron robes. Let's practice, and then one day, minus the saffron robes, our mind can be that of monks. To be a stream enterer doesn't mean that one must be ordained. Laypersons can be stream enterers. We just need to maintain the precepts and have morality. At the very least, we need to maintain the 5 precepts well. Daily, set aside time to practice formal meditation. Without formal meditation, the mind won't have enough energy and will be sluggish. So, we need to practice formal meditation, and then we will be able to cultivate wisdom. To cultivate wisdom means to see the body and the mind operating. The body changes and moves. The mind also changes and moves. There only exists that which is impermanent, decaying, and uncontrollable. Keep observing the truth. When will the truth be revealed? When the eyes, the ears, nose, tongue, body and mind make contact with forms, sounds, odors, flavors, tangible sense objects and mental objects. Meaning, when contact is made, when there is contact, the operation and processes will begin. Without contact, despite having eyes, it's like we don't have them. Despite having ears, but it's as though we don't have them. There's the mind. It's like we don't have it. The mind falls into a subliminal consciousness state and does not make contact with obvious objects. Instead, the mind makes contact with old mental objects. For example, when the mind falls into a deep subliminal consciousness state, are there any mental objects in that state? Yes, there are, but they are old mental objects, called past objects. Whenever the mind exists, an object exists. The moment the path arises, and the moment the fruit arises, there is the mind, and the object of the path and the fruit. That is the object of such mind, is the Nibbana. Thus, whenever there is the mind, there is an object. Study gradually, and we will see for ourselves. Practice gradually. In the beginning, there is nothing much. Just maintain the 5 precepts. Every day, practice formal meditation, and for the remainder of the day, practice mindfulness in daily life. How to practice mindfulness in daily life? When the eyes see form, if there's a shift in the body or in the mind, be aware of it. For instance, when the eyes see forms such as someone's face, and if anger arises in the mind, be aware, oh, the mind is angry already. If we don't cognize the anger in a timely manner, the anger will show on our face. Can't you tell that a person is angry by looking at their face? What about the face of a greedy person? Individuals with strong lust can be spotted just by looking at their faces. Thus, when the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, the body or the mind make contact with an object, and consequently the mind changes, be mindful of it. If we can't be aware of the mind, be aware of the body instead. For instance, when anger arises, if we can't cognize the angry mind even as we get mad and are about to punch the other person, be aware of the body moving, feel it. Being aware of the moving form is also fine. If we can't be aware of the mind, then be aware of the body, and we will see that everything arises and ceases. When the hands are in motion to land a punch, the mind becomes rooted in awareness and sees that the form is moving, seeing that the form is not human, and that there is no us or them. Thus, Cultivate mindfulness in daily life. Let the eyes see, let the ears hear, let the nose smell odors, let the tongue taste flavors, let the body feel tactile sensations, let the mind make contact with thought and fabrication. Permit the making of contact, and then be aware of the resulting mental reaction. If a mental reaction occurs, and we can't cognize it in a timely manner, then be aware of the bodily reaction. When the mind has lust, the body will change, and we can become aware of it. Gradually practice these 3 lessons. Maintain the 5 precepts. Every day set aside time to practice formal meditation, and for the remainder of the time, cultivate mindfulness in daily life. Allow the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body and mind to make contact with objects, and as changes occur in the mind, be aware of them. Or, if we can't observe the mind, when the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body or mind make contact with an object and a change occurs in the body, be aware of it. For instance, when we are angry, our heart races and our face gets hot. Feel these. We will see that A. The body acts on its own accord. I didn't tell it to do so. A frown. I didn't order that to happen. The defilement ordered it. Practice gradually, and one day we will understand that everything that arises also ceases. All things that arise are nothing but suffering. Apart from suffering, there isn't anything that arises. Apart from suffering, nothing exists. Except for suffering, nothing else ceases. We will become aware of it in this manner. Practice gradually. Once we see the truth, next the mind will let go. Letting go is the function of wisdom. Wisdom is what leads to the letting go. When the truth is understood, the mind will get dispassionate. Everything is suffering, so why should we hold on to any of it? It is absurd to hold on to a mass of suffering. Therefore, if we see and comprehend the truth of suffering clearly, it will be let go of, on its own, letting go of desire. When suffering is comprehended, the cause of suffering is abandoned. When the cause of suffering is abandoned, the cessation of suffering is realized. At that moment, we will attain happiness and tranquility, without anything to lure it back in. Happiness independent of sensual objects, without the bait. The mind is happy and tranquil because it comprehends the truth. When we observe suffering to the point where the cause of suffering is abandoned and the cessation of suffering is realized, this is the path to the cessation of the suffering. That is cultivation of such path. That's it for today. Is it too difficult? In summary, keep the 5 precepts. Every day, practice formal meditation, and for the remainder of the time, cultivate mindfulness by observing the body and mind at work, by observing the 3 characteristics of existence. Next, submit homework. Number 1.
Number 1. I do formal meditation every day by chanting a mantra, sitting in meditation and walking meditation. In daily life, I recite Buddho and observe the breath and the body alternately, whichever is more prominent. Then, I also observe the changes of the mind. However, when anger arises, I can hardly see it. My practice doesn't progress. The more I practice, the more I feel I know nothing. Is my practice suitable for my temperament?
Yes, it is. But there is something called worrying, this mental irritation of frustration. Why haven't I got it yet? Why haven't I progressed? It is one of defilements in the family of anger. Be aware of it. Your mind has a lot of wisdom. However, anger tends to meddle in easily. Do you notice that when practicing, the mind wants to get the results? So, the mind isn't joyful. Be aware of it. It's just a kind of defilement. Eventually, the mind will become equanimous. Be aware of everything with an equanimous mind. Your practice is good. When the mind wants to get the results quickly, be aware of it. Number 2.
Number 2. I began reciting Buddho and counting 1, Buddho and counting 2, etc. as the meditation object. Sometimes, I catch myself reciting it in my mind, but I'm still lost a lot. Sometimes, I seem to focus a lot. Do I practice correctly?
Reciting Buddho is like bait, a worm, while the fish is our mind. Therefore, if we recite Buddho and the mind is calm, know it. If we recite Buddho and the mind is restless, know it. If we recite Buddho and the mind is happy, know it. If we recite Buddho and the mind is stressful and suffering, know it. Recite Buddho and keep being aware of the mind. We recite Buddho to prevent the mind from thinking about something else, to let the mind think only the word Buddho. Then we can easily observe our mind. If the mind keeps thinking 100 or 1,000 thoughts, then we can't observe our mind because the mind is restless. Therefore, reciting Buddho is a tactic, a bait. The fish is the mind. Thus, recite Buddho, and if the mind is calm, know it. Recite Buddho, and if the mind is restless, know it. Right now, while reciting Buddho, your mind is tight. Do you know this? Right now. Number 2. Do you feel it? The mind is tight. It is uncomfortable, because we force it. So, we don't recite Buddho the way parrots or minnows do. Recite Buddho, the mind knows. Recite Buddho, know the mind, repeatedly. Buddho is known by the mind. Recite Buddho, and we are aware of our own mind, whether in the present moment the mind is happy, suffering, calm, or restless. When the mind is restless, it forgets Buddho. Instead it thinks of 100 or 1,000 thoughts. Thus, Buddho is just a thought, which can't be used for insight, as it is a conceptual object, while the mind is an ultimate object. Therefore, if we recite Buddho and are aware of mental changes, we will be able to progress to insight. Just reciting Buddho will give us calmness. This is calmness meditation. Thus, going forward, recite Buddho and be aware of the mind repeatedly. When the mind has awareness, know it. When the mind is lost, know it. When the mind is happy, suffering, good or evil, keep knowing it. And then, when it's time, get some rest. By reciting Buddho repeatedly and paying no attention to the mind, just keep reciting Buddho, and if the mind wanders away, just come back and continue to recite Buddho, disregarding wisdom cultivation. Doing so will allow the mind to have a rest. When the mind rests enough, then recite Buddho and be aware of the mind again. Number 3.
Number 3. My formal practice is sitting meditation, observing the body breathing and the mind wandering out to think by itself. I see feelings arise and cease. Sometimes, I see that the body is not me. I've never experienced unification of mind, nor have I ever seen mental images. I only see pictures of thoughts, visual thinking. My mind is restless and delusion is conspicuous. I have doubts about my practice. To the extent that I suffer, I just keep being aware of it. Now, I'm getting better. Still, I'm not neutral about phenomena. In daily life, I use the breath and bodily movement as meditation objects, and observe thoughts and feelings. Please advise me on my practice, Luang Por.
Your practice is correct. Keep going. It's good. There is a tactic for when we practice and get confused, which can happen to everyone. Don't be fooled by the evil one. When we're confused, when we have doubts, almost 100% of people will try to figure it out, because we aren't brave enough. Being confused, just know that we're confused. Just know that, in this present moment, we're confused. Just know it directly. For example, a monk told me that, "Oh, today, it's blurred, and I can't fix it." I told him, "It's blurred, just know that it's blurred. You don't like it, just know that you don't like it." I can tell you, as soon as you dislike it and you know that you dislike it, the blurred state will fall away. Sometimes, the mind is confused, and if we keep trying to figure out the answers, we will get even more confused. If the mind is confused, that is, it doesn't know what's going on, as so much delusion occurs, and so it becomes cloudy and blurry. Just know that there is delusion. The mind is cloudy and blurry. It doesn't know what it is knowing, or the mind is doubtful. Just know it as it is. If we look deep inside, it will be seen that the mind dislikes it. The mind wants it to disappear. Just know the disliking mind. Thus, to practice, at the first level, know phenomena in the present moment as they really are. At the second level, be aware of the mental reaction. For example, pleasing or displeasing with that phenomenon. When the mind is cloudy and blurry, and we try to figure out how to make it disappear, it won't disappear. Instead, the mind will be even more restless and cloudier. When the mind is blurred, know that it is blurred. The mind dislikes it. Know that the mind dislikes it. The blurred mind is history. Now, the new mental object is disliking. Thus, we observe right in the present moment. We keep getting lost in the past object. That is blurriness. Blurriness is history. The object in the present moment is disliking. Blurriness is the delusion. Then, anger disliking follows, but is not seen. Therefore, if we observe correctly in the present moment, when disliking arises, it will fall away immediately. The blurriness will vanish, because, in fact, it is ready to vanish as it is already history. The state in the present moment actually is the disliking of blurriness. Observe in the present moment. Don't get lost in figuring out how to fix past mental objects. Who can fix past mental objects? They don't exist anymore. They are just memories. Your practice is good. Number 3. Keep an eye on the big ego when it arises. When one practices well, one will have a big ego. I'm good. I'm better than everyone else. That person doesn't keep precepts. I keep precepts. The mind will incline towards comparing oneself with others. Be aware of this. This is my free gift. Number 4.
Number 4. While working, I need to talk and think all the time, which makes me tired. I'm a serious person. I practice formal meditation every day, once or twice a day, but not for long. I add another round of formal meditation as I feel the mind isn't energized. I recite Buddho and count 1 to 10 while observing the breath. I practice being aware when I itch, when I hear sounds, and when I am happy or unhappy. I get drowsy often. While having awareness, it feels like I lose track, disappearing and reappearing. Should I observe the body or mind, Luang Por?
When we do serious work that involves many people, the mind will be busy. When the mind is busy, it needs rest. So, when you sit in meditation, you will fall asleep every time, fall into a hole every time. That's natural. It's normal. Don't be nervous. If we want to practice well, we ought to practice little by little in daily life. When we don't have to involve people, recite Buddho, Buddho. We don't recite Buddho to calm the mind. Recite Buddho just for fun, and use it as a meditation object for the mind to allow the mind to rest, so it doesn't think of many random thoughts all the time. If you have time during the day, allow the mind to rest now and then. When you practice sitting meditation and walking meditation at night, you won't fall asleep easily. If the mind is exhausted as it doesn't get to rest at all, when you sit in meditation, you will fall asleep immediately because the mind needs to rest. Allow the mind to rest now and again. For instance, when you need to talk to customers, just talk. After that, if you get angry, know it. When the customers are gone, read our own mind or be aware. I recommend, be aware of the body. The body as it is standing, walking, sitting or lying down. The body as it is exhaling and inhaling. This is easier than observing the mind. Because when your mind is extremely busy, you won't be able to observe the mind. So, let's observe the body instead. Therefore, when you have to engage with a lot of people, whenever you have free time, observe the body breathing, standing, walking, sitting, lying down, moving or being still. If we observe the body in this way, the mind will gain energy. Then, go back to work with people, and when you have free time, practice again. Whenever you have a little free time, even as little as 2 minutes, 3 minutes or 5 minutes, be aware of the body, and the mind will be energized. Then, when you practice formal meditation, you won't fall asleep easily. You will have energy. Go and try this. Number 5.
Number 5. Seeing that there is a lot of Dhamma to learn makes me anxious. Sometimes, I see the knower mind being a known thing. But I can't relate that to the mind not being me. If I'd like to learn one thing about Dhamma at the deepest level, should I study suffering? Or should I observe that the 5 aggregates are not us first? Luang Por?
First of all, you need to be able to separate the 5 aggregates, and to see that the body and the mind are separate things, that happiness, suffering and the body are separate things, and the mind is yet another separate thing, that thoughts and fabrication are not the mind. Keep separating them out. You don't need to know a lot. To learn meditation, you don't need to know much. rather just a little. Minutes ago, I just mentioned that there was a lot of Dharma. But when I practiced, I only observed that. When the mind knew, I knew it. And when the mind was lost, I knew that. In this manner, over and over. Or when the mind was angry, I was aware of it. When the mind wasn't angry, I knew it. As simple as that. Don't expect what it should be like or what must be attained. We don't practice to get anything, but instead practice to observe that all things occurring right in this moment arise and cease. That's all we want to see. Don't worry about wisdom. If the wisdom is to advanced equals conceptual knowledge, the mind will not be calm, and you won't have samadhi. Without samadhi, real wisdom insight will not arise. Thus, be aware in the present moment. Keep knowing it in a simple way. Don't overthink about causes and effects. Just keep observing, and at one point, the aha moment will come on its own, that this body is not us. That happiness and suffering are not us. That good and bad are not us. That the mind arises and ceases. That it is uncontrollable, and that it is not us. The mind will see all of this by itself. So, don't worry too much about developing wisdom. Practice and stay with the meditation object. When the mind escapes, know it. When the mind is aware of the body, know it. When you force the mind to be aware of the body, know it. You still force your mind to be aware. Know your body and mind in the present moment, over and over. No need to try to figure things out. Your mind has a lot of wisdom already. But your samadhi isn't strong enough. Thus, be aware in the present moment. Now, you're forcing your mind. Do you know this? Simply know it in this way. Now, you are beginning to force your mind. Know it, and then it will relax. Do you feel the mind becoming joyful on its own? Do you feel that the body is moving? The body is moving. Feel it. Do you feel that now you are pulling your mind in? Simply know it like this. Be aware in the present moment, repeatedly. Don't worry about wisdom development. The mind will see the three characteristics of existence on its own. Number 6.
Number 6. My formal meditation is sitting meditation, plus reciting Buddho while breathing. At first, the word Buddho is my home base. After that, Buddho will disappear, so I use my breath as a home base instead. When the breath subsides and disappears, without any meditation object, it's empty and still. So, I breathe harder to gain awareness. Are there any mistakes in my practice? Please advise how to practice to separate the aggregates.
When the breath disappears and you don't have any meditation object, do you notice that when the breath disappears, the mind becomes luminous? Then you'll see rapture, bliss, or equanimity arise. Know it. When the mind exits samadhi and you are outside samadhi, be aware. Do you know that you're forcing the mind? Don't force it. The mind is like a child. It doesn't like to be forced. However, the mind needs training, otherwise, it could be like a crazy child. This is wrong. Do you know that the mind is being pulled in to be still? Don't make it still. When it is meant to be calm, it will be so on its own. It won't be calm in a stiff manner like that. Do you see that the mind is wavering back and forth on the inside? Simply be aware of it. Don't force the mind. Know the mind as it is. You're being doubtful. Do you know this? The mind is confused. Being confused, know that it is confused. Other states are all in the past already. The present moment state is being confused, Be aware of the state in the present moment. Now, you are beginning to force the mind again. Do you know this? You are forcing it by pulling it in. You pull it, and it is stuck in stillness. Not good. The mind is not in its natural state. It is still and dull. Don't force it. Let it be calm on its own. Calm in a joyful manner, calm and happy. Not calm and serious. The mind is now lost in thought, do you know? You saw it just now. You see, just now, that the mind was lost in thought. It was thinking about the words that I just uttered. Keep breathing and reciting Buddha, and be mindful. Don't force the mind, and don't let the mind get drowsy. Practice like this a lot. Later on, no matter what may happen in the mind, even minor phenomena, you will see it. Keep breathing and reciting Buddha. You begin to force the mind to be still already, do you know? Practice in this way, and you will attain good samadhi. When our mind has good samadhi, whatever happens in the mind, even just a little, we will see it. Like, right now, the mind has escaped to think already. You saw it already. Continue your practice. Number 7.
Number 7. I chant a mantra every morning and evening. I can sit in meditation just a little. I practice to be aware of phenomena. Sometimes, I'm lost for a long time, and at other times for not so long. I've been struggling through life and death. As I'm getting older, my memory and health has deteriorated. My spinal bone slipped out of place, have knee osteoarthritis. I see my body suffer and my mind suffer. I see the impermanence of the body and mind. The mind can accept phenomena better. Do I practice correctly, Luang Por?
Correct, very correct. Your practice is good. Practice gradually. The mind will understand the truth of the body and mind. Clinging will reduce on its own. The mind clings onto this and that because it doesn't see the truth of the body and mind. The mind thinks that the body is a good thing, so it clings to the body. But now, the mind has already seen that the body isn't a good thing at all, and it can't escape from the body. It is stuck in the body. Keep observing. Your practice is good, very good. Your practice is correct. Keep going. Number 8.
Number 8. This past month, I saw suffering in the middle of the chest. If I observe it for a while, the answer occurs to me, the cause of that suffering. And then that suffering will dissolve. Please give me homework, Luang Por.
That is correct. When a bad karmic effect comes, such as tightness in the chest, no matter how we observe, it won't go away. After a while observing, the mind understands its karmic causes. Oh, this is because of that. Then the phenomenon, even the karmic effect, will vanish right away. For instance, while practicing, if something happens in the body, if we keep on practicing, at one point, the mind will know the cause of that effect. Oh, this is because of that. Once the mind knows this, the effect will vanish on its own. If the mind has yet to understand the cause, the effect won't go away. It will go on its own. Practice gradually more. Can you already tell why it is tight? Go and observe this by yourself. You want me to give you the answer. Do you want it to disappear? Observe this, the wanting for it to disappear. This makes the mind not equanimous. That is all for today.